Hello and welcome back to... Is it the Alizee Yeezy show anymore? I don't even know. I am your host, Alizee Yeezy. It's been a minute since I've been in here. And today I'm joined by Carl Pilkington.
The real Carl Pilkington.
Yeah, look, your head is so round. I can't go over it. No, it's literally like a perfect sphere. You know, like they say, you can't find any perfect circles in nature. Just found one. No, I want to explain what we're doing because I'm trying to do something a little bit different, right? Because I'm kind of bored of everyone and everything. I'm not entirely over the idea of having a podcast to interview guests because I think there's still areas of which to milk some content out. But I'm kind of over podcasts I just realised the other day when I was listening to Jack May's Happy Hour, as I tell you a lot, I completely skip over all the episodes where they have guests on. Not interested. The last time I saw a guest episode, they had Johnny Knoxville on, and I just thought, oh, that's really interesting, Johnny Knoxville, and I'd just seen the recent Jackass, so I was like, okay, I'll give that a listen, whatever.
That's obviously why he did it then, because obviously he was promoting Jackass 4.5.
Yeah, he was doing the rounds, and I just thought, oh, that'll be interesting, see what Johnny Knoxville was like in an interview format. But that was it. I'm just kind of like, do you know what I mean? The idea of having to get someone down and be like, hi, so here's a thing, here's some questions, unless it's something really interesting, I'm just kind of over that idea as a podcast format for myself, subjectively. What I am into at the moment is edumacation, and I want to help educate our audience, my audience.
Soon to be my audience.
You do not get a slice in my cake that I have spent years baking.
Darn.
I want to try and educate my audience on things and try something different. So this segment within the Alizee universe is what?
I've got...
Why do you need to look at notes? We've been talking about this all day. Are you joking?
History episode 1.
We've got to think of a snappier name than that.
Did we not brainstorm a name beforehand?
HWA. History with Alizee. You know, like Horrible Histories. Do you remember that TV show?
Yes.
We could do that, but for adults. There is already that, a Dan Carlin... I haven't even actually introduced you properly. I just said, this is Carl Pilkington. This is my friend Kallum, and he is one of my best mates, I suppose. In fact, he's been on my channel several times before.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, people ask for you back when they remember you.
That's weird.
I got a comment once
Why
being like, where's your boneheaded friend? And today he is wearing a lovely, how we describe this for audio listeners, a Nikocado avocado t-shirt. This is images you can hear.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It's your fault.
It's your fault, little Slavs.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
I actually put on one of his videos the other day, because I've not seen any of his videos in like ages, months. So I just want to see what he was up to. And he was driving a mobility scooter around, yelling at the ground, being like, the ground is discriminatory. And it's like, imagine you're just going to Tesco's to do your shopping and you see this guy from the internet driving around screaming at the floor.
I'd love to live where that takes place. Like, you just go and get food and you just see him screaming. Where does he live? Like LA or something?
How would I know? I ain't gonna...
But anyway, so this is my lovely shirt. We are going to do history. I can already guarantee that it's not going to be educational. We'll try to make it educational, but we've got lots of facts here, but I think we'll just get derailed massively.
Got lots of facts, by which what I did is I just went to the paragon of all educational facts, the History Channel, you know, the host of Ancient Aliens. I just went onto there and clicked on Genghis Khan articles and just basically copied and pasted stuff. So if you don't want to do the Googling yourself, just watch this and we'll tell you the things that we have Googled and we will discuss it. Where did this idea come from? That came from me, obviously.
Yeah. I think you said, do you want to start a history show? And I said, yes, but I don't think either of us know that much about history.
He is being really modest. Callum actually does know a lot about history.
Like
you're mental about World War II.
That makes me sound really bad.
I know. Sometimes I worry that you're getting indoctrinated or radicalized by World War II documentaries.
World War II outfits and things. That would have been worse if I'd come in like a full army outfit.
Oh, you're Mark Corrigan from Peep Show. You know that episode where he dresses up as but he's hanging out with that naughty man, isn't he?
That's worse.
The naughty man. Well,
yeah.
You're not him, but you're Mark.
Okay. I can believe that. Yeah. Well, no, didn't you call me Jez once?
I've never called you Jez. You're absolutely not Jez. If anyone's Jez, it's me. And you can
you're
Mark.
super hands.
I think you take that as a compliment. Thank you. I do like super hands. Callum actually knows a lot about history and I just want to learn about stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. Episode 1 of this history podcast, in which we are going to look at Genghis Khan.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute mad lad.
Yes. But first, how's your day been?
What? Why are we talking about my day was rubbish? What are you talking? It's well out there. The tube was awful. I was at the train station and I had my headphones on and I could hear all this yelling and screaming. So I took them off to be like, oh, what's going on? And then some blokes were like running and I was like, oh, great, someone's got a machete or like a bomb's gone off somewhere. Because I just always assume,
London or something.
No, it was just a bunch of chavs yelling at like this train to wait for him, and it went off in the distance. And I was like, ha. If I was American, I'd have clapped at that train driver.
Yeah.
Serves them right. That's how my day's gone. How's yours?
I also saw something. I saw the best thing ever on the train. I was sat on the train and there was a guy waiting at the station. The train pulled up. He was on his phone and the doors opened. He was still on his phone. Doors closed, still on his phone. He looked up. He went to press the button to open the doors and the train went off. I was like, pay more attention. Yes.
I saw one of those actually up near Liverpool Street. Not one of those, just like a bloke on the phone, right?
Yeah.
But do you know what? People make me so mad in public. Yeah, they make me really ball my fists in rage sometimes. This geezer, what was he even doing? He was just glued to his phone and he was walking really slowly, and that always gets me irate. Like able-bodied people who can walk faster than 2 miles an hour, but refusing to walk faster than 2 miles an hour does me nothing, right? Especially in London. You can expect it outside of London, right? But in London, everyone's busy. They've got places to go. I have places to go. And I'm just like stuck behind this bloke. And his face is glued to his phone. He's not looking up at all. And he's walking across the road, but he's sort of like sticking onto the road as a car's coming. And like he didn't look up once. And obviously the car didn't run him over. But I was just thinking, to have the confidence of like literally just a random bloke, like who's just going around his business so sure that nothing is gonna,
Yeah, well, he's obviously never had his phone stolen in London.
Because
I've had like 3 phones stolen.
Yeah, he was literally holding it in one hand, kind of just the ways that I've had my phone stolen once before as well, and you, no doubt.
Yeah,
so this
3
guy,
times.
he's never had his phone stolen, and he's never been hit by a car.
Yeah.
Just out of order.
Quite lucky, really.
Very just annoying, false sense of confidence. That's how my day went. That's how your day went. Can we get on to talking about absolute mad lad Genghis Khan?
Yes.
So, what do we know about Genghis Khan?
What don't we know? Literally,
firstly, he had a butter's haircut.
Well, actually, that's something we'll come on to.
I'm setting the tone of this podcast really early on. This is the level of education you're going to get. He had a butter's haircut, mate.
It's going to be less educational than Horrible Histories or whatever it's called.
Is
that the one with Horrid Henry in?
No, Horrid Henry is a separate identity. It's a little boy who's always angry at stuff. It's like a pound shop Dennis the Menace.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Dennis the Menace is already pretty cheap and like
being iconic 60p, mate.
Yes.
What rip off of what? Dennis the Menace ain't rip off of nothing. How dare you?
No, I guess you're right. So what I was going to say actually in my notes is Genghis Khan never ever allowed anyone to paint his portrait, sculpt his image, or engrave his likeness onto a coin. You'd never catch him on Instagram. I don't know why I put that. That's stupid. The first images of him appeared after his death. A 14th century Persian chronicler called Rashid al-Din claimed Genghis Khan had red hair and green eyes, which apparently wasn't unusual for Mongols at that time.
You know what's funny? I've got that exact same paragraph, copy and pasted into my notes.
I think we copied and pasted it from the same place.
Sure. So no one really knows what he looked like.
Yeah. Well, he obviously didn't want anyone to know what he looked like after his death, or he had some sort of thing about his image, which doesn't make sense why in Mongol he's now on the currency. Because he obviously didn't want anyone to know what he looked like. Just slap him on a note.
Do you reckon he was butters?
Maybe.
And that's why. No, because all the popular images portrayed of Genghis Khan nowadays, he has that really horrible hipster-esque haircut. You've seen it.
I have, but he's like
pictures
balding.
of it.
He's got white hair.
Yeah,
and he's got the moustache.
Yeah. No, he has that little, like that tiny fringe.
He's got the
tiny
spike.
fringe. He's got a bad trim.
Yeah.
I think that's why he was so angry, going around doing loads of murders. No, we have to take it right back, all the way to the beginning.
Yes.
The man who would become the great Khan of the Mongols was born along the banks of the Onon River, sometime around 1162. Originally named Temujin, which means of iron or blacksmith.
I haven't got that note. I don't know where you got that from.
Because I'm a genius, mate. I just know how to Google stuff.
So yes, he's actually born Temujin. He didn't get the name Genghis Khan until much later. Khan meaning ruler, I believe, of the people of the Mongols. Yeah, Temujin, he was born to his father Yasuge. His father could be a whole another episode, but I don't know how much information there is about him. But
just look on
he had
Wikipedia.
he had some crazy things happen. Born as Temujin, Genghis Khan was named after a leader who was defeated by his father, Yasuge, and he was defeated around the time that Temujin was born. He was said to have come into the world holding a blood clot.
Yes, I read that too.
Yes.
And I don't understand the significance of that. A blood clot, because, I don't know if you've seen many birthing videos, but labour is a pretty horrific thing for a woman to go, every woman should just stop going through labour right now. There's a lot of blood involved. There's a lot of guts and gore involved in pushing a baby out of your vagina. So what's the special significance of him just having some blood clots in his hand? I don't get that.
Well, supposedly it was a sign that he was born to be a great leader. Obviously, this would be from some sort of mythology way before he was born. He was also apparently of divine origin, his first ancestor having been a grey wolf, born with destiny from on high.
Sounds a lot like the North Korean propaganda of Kim Il-sung, the first one.
I've mentioned that as well.
Well, we'll get to it.
We will get to it. So going back to Yasuge quickly, just have a single line here. His mother had been kidnapped by his father and forced into marriage, which is pretty horrific. Doesn't sound like a great guy.
At the time.
Yeah,
it was kind of the standard at the time, I think. In certain parts of, there's certain things that we can't read with 21st century hindsight look back on. It's like ancient Greece, right? Women weren't allowed to, they were married off by the age of 14. They weren't allowed to leave their husband's home.
Yes.
What am I going to do about that? I can't make a time machine and go back and be like, have you heard of feminism? No.
Well, I think kidnapping has always been something that's pretty frowned upon. Anyway.
Sure, but I think some things are a bit more... what are you going to do? I doubt there was policemen. Were there judges and jurors back in 11?
You would have had some kind of order, I would have thought.
Yes, some. But
Not
I don't feel like it's going to be on the highest. Just like some East End geezers.
The Peelers.
The Peelers, what's that? What are you from?
It's
Peaky
the Bobbies.
Blinders?
The Bobbies and the Peelers.
The Bobbies.
Because Sir Robert Peel started the Metropolitan Police, and that's why they called Bobbies, because obviously Robert, Bobby, and Peelers, because Peel.
How do you know that?
Because
why do you know
there's a pub
that?
that I used to live near called Sir Robert Peel, and one time I googled it. All right. What do you want from me?
You do know about history.
Yeah,
it's
because
just
of pub
quite
names.
inane.
Yeah, so there's a pub that I went past earlier called the Conqueror. I'm going to Google that. Which conqueror? There's so many. This is a conqueror right now. Genghis Khan. Maybe it was Genghis Khan. So at the age of 9, his father, Yasuge, arranged a marriage for Genghis Khan, or Temujin, and delivered him to the family of his future wife, Borte, of the tribe Konjirat. So Temujin was to live there, serving as the head of the household for the Dai Setsen until the marriable age of 12. The ripe old age of 12.
Again, I'm saying it was
Different
just a
times.
kind of... Exactly, it was just a different standard at the time.
Yeah.
Certain things, you could get more away with kidnapping women. Women historically haven't been seen as first-class citizens. You could probably, up till recently, the past couple hundred years, get away with kidnapping a woman.
The thing with the young marriable age as well is people probably didn't live too long in those times. Definitely not the 1200s. This was 1162. So it's kind of like you have to get your life in as quickly as possible. Maybe there's a bit more of that.
There's a common misconception that everyone just died at the age of 30, though. Very common misconception.
Well, no, he died at 65, but spoilers.
Spoiler alert, Genghis Khan died.
It's like YouTube videos
end.
where they put the end or a funny bit at the beginning and then spoil the rest of it.
Yeah, the average life expectancy is just a lot lower for the olden times because the infant mortality rate was higher. And obviously you would have a lot more diseases that weren't treatable back then, but the infant mortality rate was really high. Hence why some people would knock out 7 kids and maybe 2 would make it to childhood.
Yeah.
Facts. That's why Victorian families always had 10 kids, and then they'd send off 3 of them to a workhouse to make gruel.
Well, it's funny you said 7 because Temujin's mother had 7 children as well.
From an early age, Genghis Khan was forced to contend with the brutality of life on the Mongolian steppe. Rival Tartars, don't know who that is, assuming...
It's a neighbouring clan.
Hopefully.
That's what I've got here.
poisoned his father when he was 9 years old. So Genghis Khan had to grow up hunting and foraging to survive. As an adolescent, he might have even killed his half-brother over a dispute over food. So at a very early age, having to deal with the harshness of living in 11th century Mongolia. Was it called Mongolia back then?
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't actually make a note of that. That would have been... Because I've got a note here that says later on he founded Mongolia. So what was it called before?
Well, we can't.
I didn't see that on...
We can't Google that. We'll just never know.
I didn't see that on any of the research sites that I went on.
Well,
it's quite a big thing to miss out, I think. Maybe it's just unnamed land, number 1.
Geography, don't matter. Life was harsh back then, but to have to kill one of your siblings at an early age, foreshadowing.
Yeah, well, so he had 7 brothers, but he murdered his half-brother. So I wonder if maybe there was a bit more tension there because he's a half-brother. But we won't know because it was like almost 1,000 years ago. Can't ask.
Good one.
Yes. But I wanted to mention something about that. This was the age of 9. His father was poisoned. But also at the age of 9, his father had arranged the marriage for him. So I wonder if his father had known that he was going to have an attempt on his life. Well, maybe he was doing something risky. Although, because this is so long ago, a lot of the years and dates are just off. Because they don't even know what year he died. He may have died in his 70s or he may have died in his 60s.
What, the 1970s? Knocking around David Bowie.
Yeah, all that happened. Pretty grim. So Genghis Khan had 4 sons. I don't know why I've mentioned this. Right after we've done that, he was married at the age of 12.
Well, we can't skip ahead that much then. Like that's later on. We can't just skip entirely ahead to he was 12-year-old and then he had 4 sons. Unless he had sons like when he was, I don't know, 15 or so, which might have been...
May have done. Maybe that's why I put that in here. It doesn't say anyway. But we've started, so I'll finish. He had 4 sons and an unknown number of daughters. Not even a quantifiable amount of daughters.
I read that too. Which says to me, either because women just weren't as regarded back then, maybe it just didn't matter. They couldn't be bothered to keep count. You know, it was like Christmas time in ancient Mongolia and they're sitting around the day even celebrate. Probably wouldn't celebrate Christmas. Their equivalent of Christmas. They're not even counting heads. Home Alone. They don't count the heads, right? And then Kevin gets left at home. Same situation.
No, they do count, don't they? But they skip over.
Well, they incorrectly counted because they counted
one.
They counted the neighbour's kid. They couldn't even be bothered to check. Yeah. That's how little they regarded Kevin.
It would also be... Yeah, so the sons would be able to be successors and the daughters wouldn't. The daughters would be daughters. So he had 4 sons, Jochi, Chagatai, Ogedei, and Toloi. He assigned his son Ogedei as his successor because Ogedei was the only one that didn't have problems with the other sons. So they all had problems, and Ogedei was just chill. It was just fine.
Good for him.
Genghis Khan, at this point called Temujin, is typically seen as a bloodthirsty conqueror, although in Mongolia he's a beloved figure where he's seen as the father of the nation, which I thought was quite similar to Kim Il-sung and how he founded North Korea. Although it's up to debate whether Kim Il-sung is actually beloved by the people of North Korea or if they're just forced into it.
They have to really... it's difficult because obviously I've never spoken to anyone from North Korea, but from defectors, I don't know, it's hard to say because they are aware of... Maybe not the propaganda, but they're aware that they have to act a certain way because otherwise they'll get put in... camps.
Yeah. Wasn't Kim Il-sung the one who got 18 holes in one in the first game of golf?
I think that was Kim Jong-il. So the son.
No. Okay, yeah.
The son. And then I think Kim Jong-il also created the hamburger.
Thank you.
But it's not called it's not called hamburger over there. It's called double bread with minced meat.
I mean, it's a more accurate description. A hamburger doesn't even have ham in.
I know.
Beef burger.
Yeah. And I think he was born on a... Well, let's do an episode about him. Because I find that very fascinating.
List. Yeah, that is on the list. And we could also cover Kim, the other one, Kim Jong-il, because he was really into movies. He made a lot of movies. We'll get onto that. So watch this space. There should be another episode.
Let's just not cover the current one.
No, we'll do that after he pops his clogs.
What, in like 50 years' time? We're going to play the long game on that one,
Not
don't you worry.
Not if he keeps eating cheese. So before becoming a Khan, Temujin eliminated and united many of the nomadic tribes of Northeast Asia and Central Asia under a social identity of the Mongols. So he kind of consolidated all the tribes and the power into his own army and land. The conquests that he did, which we will go into more detail in just a sec, but the conquests he did destroyed entire cities and countries. So you can imagine just a whole country being decimated.
Yeah, it'd be like
by
that.
this army.
Be like that bit in Mulan where they're all singing and they're all happy, and then that village is just destroyed.
Because that's Attila the Hun, isn't it? Who's I think quite a similar, maybe even more bloodthirsty in some ways.
I don't know.
We'll do an episode.
Because Genghis Khan is possibly the most prolific killer in history, isn't he? Possibly.
Yeah. So they reckon he killed up to 40 million people. Let's get to that bit, because he killed 40 million people, which was roughly 11% of the world population.
Yeah.
At the time. So obviously it would never happen now, but if you scaled that up, that would be the entire population of France, Italy, the US, Russia, and Germany in today's population.
Absolute mad lad.
Yes.
Wait, England wasn't on that list, was it?
So UK as well, yes.
The UK's
so 6 places.
I thought we'd avoided
Italy,
it then.
Germany, Russia, France, US, UK. I think it's pretty horrific. He killed a lot of people, and not just him, obviously his army, but his army would run over countries and places just like a horde, like a swarm of just so many people.
Like one of the plagues of Egypt.
Yes, like the locusts.
Yeah, that's really in my mind at the moment. It's living rent-free in my mind.
So it would be equivalent today, if it was 11% of the population today, 869 million people. And I got the countries right. No, I didn't. Russia, Germany, US, Japan, and the UK combined.
It's a lot of people. What can I say? It's a lot of people.
So he destroyed, him and his army destroyed 3/4 of modern-day Iran's population during his war with the Khwarizmid Empire, which there's a lot of information on that I've got here, which we can move on to. So his military successes made Genghis Khan one of the most important conquerors of all time, which you can say he was an overachiever. Like the amount that he accomplished in relatively short time with his empire is the empire's around, I believe, for about 200 years before it sort of fractured off. Actually, I think it was about 100 years, and it started splintering, and then it sort of went completely. So they occupied, I believe it was the largest landmass of all time. It was Central Asia, it was China. They started to go off into Europe, but they didn't make it over to Europe. But I did watch a video that said, would it have been good for Europe if Genghis Khan had made his way more to the west?
Good for Europe how? Like, what was the point of that video? What were they saying?
So he introduced quite a few things.
Oh, yes. Well, let's not get onto that yet. You're steamrolling way ahead.
It's the same paragraph.
I don't care. Just do a little pause. Let me
just have a breather.
Let me speak. I'm the professional talker. One famous example of his meritocracy, I'm joking, came during a 1201 battle against the rival Tajik tribe when Genghis was nearly killed after his horse was shot out from under him with an arrow. I'm pretty sure that is...
I've heard differently. I heard that he was shot...
From who? Who did you hear it from? Genghis Khan? What are you talking about?
Video. It's not in the notes, but he was shot in the neck with an arrow, but he lied and said his horse was shot in the neck because he didn't want to seem weak for having been hit.
I would argue that getting shot in the neck with an arrow and surviving is the exact opposite of being weak. I think that is firstly metal as fuck. And secondly, how would you, back in the 11th century... Right, the century things confuse me, yeah. Because we're in the 21st century, but we're not in 2100.
Because it starts from zero.
What? What starts from zero?
So you have 0 to 100 is the first
I'll go
century.
0 to 100 in a minute.
Okay.
I'm joking.
It makes sense in my head.
But no, it doesn't. That doesn't make sense to me. But also, our timeline doesn't really... what do we have? Do we have the Gregorian calendar? Is that what it's called? Don't make no sense to me, yeah? Because it was like Jesus. So Jesus was born 0. And now it's the year 2022. It ain't, though, is it? It's the year like...
16 billion or something.
Like 4.5 billion.
Yeah. I know.
I don't understand why we went from... like, because, you know, in China, it must be... For the Chinese New Year, it must be a completely different year, right?
Yes.
Why are we stuck with the Jesus years when most people in England don't even believe in Jesus anymore?
Well, people of the world do. I don't know about this country.
No, most people in this country are now more like agnostic or atheist. We're not really that much of a Christian nation anymore. Like, people are way more atheist. Nietzsche did it, aren't they?
I may have this wrong, but didn't the days flow differently as well? In the Roman times, they had like 5 or 6 days in a week. So
I've never heard that.
the flow of time would have been even more different. Even more different. We're trying to educate people even more different.
Just ignore the notes for a second, yeah?
No, this isn't my notes. I'm freestyling. This is where it all goes wrong.
This is more interesting to me, yeah? Right, I don't know anything about that, but I do know that David Icke says in his book The Biggest Secret that the human body's circadian rhythm is closer to a 25-hour day, i.e. the amount of time the hours are in a day on Mars, because he thinks that we're actually from Mars.
I think we're from Mars, but not like people came from a spaceship. I think
microbes.
I think microbes
Bacteria
hitchhiked off the meteor or meteorite.
Which meteor?
That killed the dinosaurs and made the Chicxulub crater.
What?
I think that a piece of Mars broke off, crashed into the Earth, killed the dinosaurs, and birthed the humans.
How is that more sensible than David Icke saying, no, right, what it was, yeah, is we actually lived on Mars first, but then there was some sort of nuclear apocalypse, cataclysm, whatever, and then we had to move over to Earth.
Yeah, maybe they had really, really advanced technology on Mars like thousands of years ago, and then they wiped themselves out. I quite like that idea.
You like that idea?
Yeah.
A whole civilization turned to red dust.
Yeah, it's quite cinematic, isn't it? It's quite.
You're just thinking
like
of The Martian with that bloke.
Matt Damon.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Mark Wahlberg. Who's Mark Wahlberg?
Oh.
No,
we're not
Matt
educating
Damon.
anyone.
Matt Damon. It is Matt Damon.
Don't listen to a word we're saying. We're just talking
rubbish. Is that
rubbish.
offensive now to be like Matt Damon? Because that's just from Team America.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't think so. South Park, the creators of South Park are never offensive.
You've been sarcastic. They're like
Absolutely
the most offensive
not.
writers out there.
They're all right.
They're
But
pretty good.
maybe that's why. Have you seen things like the door on Mars? The little door?
Yeah.
And, do you know what I really hate? Yeah, whenever interesting pictures come out about Mars and people look through them and go, oh my God, is that an alien? Is that a doorway? Is this an obelisk or a structure or whatever? The boffins always come out and say, well, that alien is actually the dust was swirling at a particular angle and the light caught it. You know, the little green figure on Mars. The light caught it and that's all that is. Oh, that doorway cave thing is just a natural formation of the rock.
It's a natural door.
People get so interested in this stuff when stuff like that gets in the news. So why are you boffins ruining it with your rationalism? I don't want to hear it. I want to hear about how there's a secret race of aliens inside Mars.
It was quite interesting, I think, that it was the Chinese rover that took a picture of the door. And then it's a lot of the American scientists saying that it's fake, or, not fake, but it's a natural structure.
China photoshopped it.
Or like a trick of the light.
They always say it's definitely not a trick of the light, because it's definitely a doorway. Stop looking at your
Well,
notes, because we are going into this right now.
The rover needs to go towards the door and open the door. And
why can't it just go
walk
inside
through the door?
Why can't it just do that?
Because there's like entrances to buildings and things that have been seen on Mars, which they say are like, have you seen the one where it's cut into like the side of a hill and it looks like an entryway that people would walk into?
That's what I'm talking about.
No, I thought you were talking about there's like a almost like a part of Stonehenge.
People can't see this
Mars.
when they're listening. Stonehenge on Mars?
Yeah.
Why is Stonehenge on Mars? Stonehenge.
You must have seen that one.
Stonehenge is so shit on this planet.
It's like
why is it on
3
Mars?
rocks, like a door on Mars. Is that on Mars or the moon? Same difference.
This is really educational.
Mars. It is Mars.
But there's structures on the moon, and NASA tries to Photoshop them, but they use like the burn tool and stuff. I've seen YouTube videos on like where people get like, the pictures. It's kind of like 4K plus of the moon when NASA releases them, every 20 years or so. People will zoom into them and be like, you can see here, but they've used the burn tool to try to smudge out some clear structure, not a natural formation on. I don't care if it's kind of bullshit. I love that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
I love that stuff. That's so interesting. I just love the idea of some big wig high up in NASA being like, I'm going to get the old Photoshop tool out. Can't have people seeing there's buildings on the moon.
Is there not a way to check if a photo's been doctored by looking at the metadata? Well, I guess maybe there's settings you can turn off to.
Sorry,
to check
how would
that.
I know? I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. Why don't you do that?
I'll do that.
You know where
I
you
will
just
do that.
reverse image search.
Just enhance the picture, undo all edits. You just see like Kylie Jenner on the moon or something.
Kylie Jenner. Or just like a bustling metropolis utopia all up there on Mars. David Icke says that not Mars, what we're talking about, we're talking about the moon. David Icke says that the moon is some sort of, it's fake.
It's hollow.
It's just not real. And it's like the frequencies coming down from the moon are helping us. It's a hologram or something, but not an actual hologram, but kind of like a giant Death Star. He's probably not said any of this. I think I am just making it up, but no one's going to double check, so everyone's going to
He's probably
believe
watching
me.
this like, well, I didn't say that.
Did I say that?
I said it was hollow and made of cheese. It's got a secret city in the centre.
Shall we get back on track before I end up in a lawsuit with David Icke? Look,
so
I'm sorry, mate.
The thing I wanted to mention next is this is something that I thought was quite interesting because it's a similar thing to what Henry VIII did, and I see some parallels with Henry VIII and Temujin / Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan, one of his earliest decrees as Khan, so he's Khan now, just get over it. We didn't explain how or why, but he's Khan. So he's the ruler. He's obviously dominated all these places and he's now the ruler. He created a mounted courier service called the Yam, which is like a postal service. So we would have yams. I put here in the notes, what's the yams? And no one would know what that is because it's a Kendrick Lamar song and it's... What's the yams?
I think some people would know. I think some people have heard of who Kendrick Lamar is, Callum.
Maybe. It's quite underground. So it's a series of organised post houses and way stations strung out across the whole empire. So a courier would go a certain distance and then stop and rest at the house and then go further up to 200 miles in a day.
So it's like Death Stranding by Hideo Kojima.
Yes, but better.
I like that game. It's got Norman Reedus.
This is
you
better.
just go around like different parcels. It's just Postman Simulator, and I love it. This is Fallout New Vegas because the courier, who is a way stronger protagonist than what's his face in 3 and what's their face in 4. Just saying.
Do they have names in 3 and 4?
Or self-inserts, so like your name,
Yeah.
YN or whatever. The courier is more fleshed out and better. Fallout New
I haven't
Vegas.
played that one.
So you've played 3 and 4 and 3, like they suck in comparison. It's literally apples and oranges. I don't really like oranges. I love apples.
Thanks for that tidbit.
This
is the educational part.
I'm really into pomegranate at the moment, if you must know. I love putting pomegranate on everything, you know.
Brilliant.
Keeps you looking youthful.
It's very healthy.
Yeah, so this is basically Fallout New Vegas.
Yes.
This courier service.
Yes, it is. But this is even better because the Yam wasn't just a postal service. It was also acting as a series of spies for the Khan. So this whole empire with posts and points for collecting information and passing it to the Khan. That's crazy. And considering they had the biggest landmass at the height of their empire, it's a lot of distance covered.
It sounds a bit like Amazon Prime as well.
Yes, it also says the service was used by Marco Polo, but I don't know anything about Marco Polo. Except Marco
Polo.
Yeah, that's all I know.
That's the exact... We're so in sync with our idiosity, honestly, because I read that same thing too.
Buffoonery.
And I thought, what the hell is Marco Polo actually famous for? Because I only know him from the water game.
I'm going to freestyle and say he invented the game Polo, as you said.
No, I'm on about the water game. Polo
Water
is different.
polo.
No, well, polo is played on horses.
As you get the little sticks, it's like
Which
horse
is on
cricket.
Horse cricket. But you can't do that in the water.
What's water polo then?
The water... No, it's not water polo. It's just Marco Polo.
Water polo is a thing.
It's just called Marco Polo.
Okay.
Marco Polo, where you're at a swimming pool and you close your eyes, say Marco Polo.
We need to do an episode on Marco Polo.
I don't reckon it was actually real. I think it's fake news. But we never said about the bloke who shot him with an arrow.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Because he imprisoned the Taija after he defeated them. He imprisoned them. He demanded to know who did shoot him with the arrow. A soldier stood up and was like, I am Spartacus. No, he was like, I am the shooter. Stirred by the archer's boldness, Genghis made him an officer in army and nicknamed him Jeb. What, like Jeb Bush? Do you remember Jeb Bush?
Yes.
What's he up to now? I wonder.
Yeah, irrelevant.
Jebi, or Arrow, in honour of their first meet on the battlefield, along with the famed general Subutai Jebi. I can't even speak properly. I just
No,
skipped over
that's
a
all right.
No,
Yeah.
but I was like Subutai Jebi. Well,
Oh.
along with the famed general along with the famed general who was called Subutai, Jebi would go on to become one of the Mongols' greatest field commanders during their conquests in Asia and Europe. I like that he didn't hold it against them.
I think you mentioned it, he appreciated the honesty. He knew that if he spoke up, he could be killed by Genghis Khan, yet he did it anyway and said it was me. And I think there's a running thread in this where Genghis Khan chooses loyalty over betrayal, and he values certain characteristics in his soldiers and things.
Yes. I find it interesting because, you've just been shot at by this person who's on this opposing tribe or army, so they have their own belief set and system. So then to employ that person, as it were, Genghis Khan was not an ideologue. Maybe he didn't believe in ideology. He wasn't an ideologue.
Ideology.
That's in my head rent free as well. No, I just find that interesting because that is very much being the bigger person there, being like, well, you
definitely.
shot me, but recognizing that maybe we come from two different backgrounds and you have your beliefs and that's why I'm saying that Genghis Khan could have ended racism.
Well,
I'm joking.
maybe not, but
I'm joking.
let's be completely real. He saw a good soldier and he didn't want to let the good soldier go. He wanted that soldier in his army, which he did quite a lot in the beginning. He turned a lot of enemies into friends, as it were.
I would say then he doesn't
colleagues.
have... Because some people would just put that person to death or that tribe to death or whatever.
He's not completely virtuous. There's been times...
No, it's not virtue, but I think it's a lack of pride. Because pride is what would make you be like, nope, you're all getting hung.
Well, there was one time, might as well mention it now, the Khwarizm Empire offended Genghis Khan by beheading his messenger and looting his trade caravan. So Genghis Khan sent I don't know how you'd explain it, a trade caravan. He sent basically links to go trade with the Khwarizm Empire to make them trade partners. Genghis Khan saw the trade ties by sending a 500-man caravan laden with trade goods. Inilchuk was the uncle of the Shah, Muhammad II, and governor of Otra, which is the city they were in. Inilchuk executed the majority of the caravan, and after the attack, he refused to make reparations to Genghis Khan for looting the caravans and loss of goods. In response, Genghis Khan sent 3 ambassadors to meet with the Shah to explain the trade intent. And basically, this thing had happened. He wanted to explain his position and say, look, I want to trade with you. I want to do business. So he didn't go straight away to go burn the city down. He sent 3 ambassadors, and Inilchuk killed one of the ambassadors and shaved the beards off the other 2, which apparently was massively insulting to Genghis Khan. So it led to a huge Mongol invasion of 200,000 men, and the civilian population were decimated with as many as 90% killed, although skilled workers were sent back to Mongolia.
It's kind of bang out of order to just kill an ambassador though. Like generally you're not really allowed to do that. Like don't kill me, don't hurt me.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Don't shoot the messenger, right? So it is quite insulting. But then to go around and kill all the civilians.
Well, so bearing in mind the Khwarizmid Empire could have had trade relations with Mongolia and Genghis Khan. Instead, the empire got sacked by the army. And
What does that
Genghis
mean
Khan's
when
army
the empire gets
just got
sacked?
completely destroyed. But the last city, Urgench, was the last city in the sort of line of destroyed cities in the Khwarizmid Empire. And the battle there lasted 6 months. Just this one city. And that's because the city was heavily fortified, as you'd expect from the last sort of location of an empire. It would have all of the defensive things because they only have one place to defend. But the residents and the army and things there were using guerrilla tactics. So all the different houses around the city, they were attacking from there. So in the end, Genghis Khan and his generals just got so sick of that they took drastic action. They killed every civilian they found because they could have been obviously being used for guerrilla tactics. But they also they destroyed a dam to divert and flood what was left of the city. So they just destroyed the whole city in one swoop after about 6 months just by flooding it completely, and killed any remaining civilian or soldier that was alive with no exceptions. So he was that mad and pissed off that he just said, just kill them all, destroy the whole city and therefore empire.
I feel like back then breaking dams to flood cities and kill people was maybe more normal than we thought. And I only say that because I read a fantasy book recently where like the climax of it very much was this person built this dam, had it build up after years and years and years with the sole purpose of flooding to kill a dragon. But the writer of this story is very into medieval, Lord of the Rings, like whatnot. So I'm assuming it's based off of actual real life examples of it happening.
Well, it's not the first time. It's not the last time in Genghis Khan's story that it happened. We'll cover that at the end. Because
more floodings, more dam breaking.
Yeah,
because you would have kind of rudimentary.
It's a good way to destroy a whole city.
And it would be easy because what materials are knocking around back then?
It would have been
stone,
wood, stone. Yeah,
that's it. You could just kick it over. Like little tiny twig holding up the dam, just kick it over like in a cartoon. It all comes crashing down.
A beaver will just take a twig out of the dam. It will just knock the whole thing over.
I've seen that happen in like Looney Tunes.
Yep, seen it with my own eyes in that cartoon. So we mentioned that he takes soldiers and civilians and people that he thinks will be useful to his empire and assimilates them into his Mongolia. He was also interested in philosophies of other cultures. He studied at length Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, and Christianity. I think maybe he may have been genuinely interested in different religions. I think maybe it was so he could have better trading terms and also have almost the upper hand on his enemies because he'll know sort of what they won't do and what they will do. That seems to me more like something he would do since he was such an overachiever at war. So he attempted to befriend Persia and he sent a Muslim emissary, which is probably unusual for a empire that's not Muslim. He granted Mongolian places of worship, tax exemptions, and religious freedoms. So it's quite progressive, quite liberal for the time.
That's literally, I wrote that in my notes too. I wrote, oh my God, so progressive. We love a liberal king. Love that for him.
A liberal
so progressive.
Murderer.
I think.
Mass murderer.
Yeah, because I think the right to religious freedom is actually quite important. And I'm not religious, I'm agnostic. So I was thinking about this recently. Because like a lot of atheists like to bang on about. Because there are elements of religion that certainly are harmful. And then there are elements that people I think are using to be harmful on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe if they didn't have religion, they would just use some other form of prejudice I'm talking about homophobia within, like a lot of religions or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But to be like, because I hear a lot of atheists be like, yeah, I want to ban religion. It's a bigger argument to have about freedom because you can't try to create more freedom from religion by impacting other people's freedom to worship that religion should they choose to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I don't really have an issue with people being religious. Just don't use it as an excuse to hurt people. Don't use it as an excuse to exert prejudice, right? Other than that, if it's just about you and you wanting to go one-on-one with some sort of creator that you believe in, but who the hell am I to be like, no, you can't believe in what value system makes sense to you?
Just believe what you want. Yeah.
That's why I believe in reptilians. I'm not even joking. I do believe that they exist somewhere. The universe is infinite, and if it is infinite, if it truly is infinite, that means everything that can happen will happen and has happened.
They're on Mars. They're in Mars. Inside the core.
Inside the hollow Mars. Do you know there's a hollow Earth theory?
Yes.
Yeah, I used to believe it when I was like 16.
I know.
Have I told you about that?
Yes.
It is actually mad. It's like
Surely it'd be something you could easily test.
No, because the entry points are in the North Pole, obviously. And Yeah, obviously. And it's guarded by the reptilians who live inside, because within our hollow Earth, there's kind of... Did you see that King Kong film where they go inside the Earth and then it's kind of almost gravity sort of... Not gravity's flipped, but...
Yeah. I can't remember when I saw that, but yeah, they go and it kind of, when you go to the different pole, it switches things around.
Yeah, and you can see basically the other side of the inside of the hollow Earth. You can see it if you look up or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. That's going on our Earth, but there's a mini sun in the middle, and then the reptilians all live like on the inner crust, right?
There is a molten core, so it could be like a sun.
Prove me wrong is all I'm saying. Get
a little exposition.
Get a little exposition team right to the North Pole and prove me wrong that there's
an expedition team.
I ain't got the
Or
money.
YouTube channel, go do a video. Going to the core of the earth.
I'll get banned.
Yes, maybe.
No, I don't really believe that now. I just believed it when I was 16 or 17 because it was interesting and it was just a bit different, you know?
Yeah. So one thing I was going to mention is, I didn't put it in my notes, so I might butcher it. I do know a bit about Henry VIII, but there's some parallels, I think, with that and Henry VIII separating the church and state, which he obviously wanted to do that because he was angry at Catholicism. Yes.
It was either that or the Protestants, or didn't he create...
No, he founded
create...
Protestantism because he
Yes.
wanted to divorce his wife and they wouldn't let him. And then he separated church and state. But that, I think ultimately separating church and state was good for the country.
That's why I would say that we're not really a religious country anymore.
Yeah.
Because there is... I believe in that. I believe in separation of church and state, 100%.
Where you didn't have the churches
shouldn't-
setting the rules and things like that.
Yeah, religion should have nothing to do with governing the land. Are you joking? It should just be something that you do in your private time between you and the big people upstairs.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that is because obviously Genghis Khan seemed to be quite open to religion, and he didn't have this thing of, I am this religion and everyone else must be too. And so, but I did also see from another source, I say source, like someone's telling me all these things that happened 1,000 years ago, that he didn't allow his followers to follow religious traditions, such as, I think they mentioned not eating beef if you're Muslim, which I think they are allowed to, but he wouldn't allow them to eat sheep or something along those lines. So I don't know why that would be. If he was studying all these religions and then didn't allow his followers to follow those religions openly, as I say, there was more places saying that he was religiously open than there was saying that he was restricting people.
Was he a dictator?
From what I've read, yes, because you don't get an empire like that without dictating to people. But the way he acted, he was bloodthirsty to the people he came across, but the people in his army, he was probably not benevolent. Benevolent, that is the word, isn't it?
Don't ask me. I have trouble speaking.
A graceful ruler. I think he would have been a bit fairer than someone like, I don't know, Pol Pot or Stalin or something, even though he did kill twice the amount of people that Stalin did, and bearing in mind it was 1,000 years ago. So that's not adjusted for the number of people. That is, he killed 40 million people, estimated, and Stalin killed 20 million. So, not great.
So we can qualify we can qualify him as a dictator.
Yes,
Then I
would
think that
say
would
so.
be maybe a typical dictatorry thing to do.
Yeah,
with the religious aspect anyway.
yeah. Well, a dictator would probably say no religion. Yeah, because religion would cause people to have beliefs outside of the system and outside of their ruler. We mentioned about him capturing soldiers to join his army. I put a note in here which you're absolutely not going to appreciate, and you'll probably cut this section, but he reminds me of Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid, especially Metal Gear Solid 5,
God's
because
sake.
he would recruit enemy soldiers. He would defeat enemies and then take them back to base. He would interrogate them, but then become friends with them and let them join his army.
Is this what you're going to do every episode? You're going to find some way to bring it back to Metal Gear Solid.
No.
You're absolutely going to do this. Who is Big Boss? I don't know who that is. I don't care.
He is one of the main characters. So you should like Metal Gear Solid because it's
I tried
what
to
Death
play it.
Stranding was.
I played the one where you start on a ship and then you have to sneak around. I don't sneak around. I'm a kamikaze type of girl. Right? I
Okay.
like to just like charge in there and cause a ruckus.
Okay.
I'm not playing. I would play the one where he eats the snakes. If that is
Snake Eater.
Is that the one where it's like? But is that the main gameplay?
That's
just going
Big
around.
Boss.
But is that what you do? Just go around eating snakes? Because I'd play that one. Oh.
You rarely eating snakes is like a way to recover health. That's you do it if
That's
you want
rubbish.
to recover
I
health.
like
You
playing
can shoot
stuff like
frogs and eat them, which you probably won't like as a vegan. You should want to eat snakes.
I just like to live vicariously through video game characters.
But that one's really good because it's set in the Cold War and it's got that Cold War hysteria about it. And
I like stuff like
great.
I like in Red Dead Redemption where you just go around and you can just camp. I like that kind of ultra realism in some of my games. You can do that in Final Fantasy 15 as well. I'll just go camp and drive around in a car. I could do that in real life, but where is the fun in that? Outside, It's horrible. There's always other people around.
And now
They
it's
can
really
fuck
hot
off.
at the minute.
It's really hot. It's disgusting. There's wasps. I went to the French countryside in when was it, May? And there was so many wasps everywhere.
That's grim.
That's what I get for ever leaving England.
Yeah. They need to get a grip with their wasp problem. We haven't spoken about my favourite character in this story, which is probably a bit weird to have a favourite character for like a murderous dictator.
This isn't Lord of the Rings. This is history.
Well, you might agree. Jamukha was a
he's my
childhood
favourite.
friend of Genghis
Love him.
Khan.
Brilliant. I'm sorry.
This should be in your notes. I think you
go
mentioned him earlier.
No, I didn't.
Anyway, Jamukha was a childhood friend of Genghis Khan. They were blood brothers, so united by blood. However,
Were they actually, as in genetically?
no, blood brothers is like where you make a pact and
You cut your hand and then...
Yeah, like we are blood brothers. I think that
I read about that in a vampire book.
I think that is true. Some of the comments, or the comments are going to be like this. This is wrong. You are wrong about this. Metal Gear Solid
I can't
sucks.
wait. Maybe I'll just disable all the comments
Like,
and make
this is
people
like-
really mad.
This is anti-education. I think
That's...
just filling people's heads with rubbish.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
But Jamukha was childhood friend. What could possibly go wrong? Best friends, grew up together. Obviously, one's a tyrant. What would happen to the other one? So Genghis Khan's wife was captured. Jamukha was there to help his friend recover and bring her back to safety. However, after this, don't know what happened, but after this, their friendship began to sour. May have been that there was a bit of jealousy, maybe about Genghis Khan's wife, or maybe Genghis Khan didn't want to be seen as weak because his wife had been kidnapped. Whatever. So they split and became enemies. So imagine having Genghis Khan as your enemy. Like best friend and then enemy.
I'd leave the country.
Well, I'd leave the world to go
You'll
to Mars.
find out. You will find out because I'm going to do what he did to Jamukha.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it to you.
So there's a lot of bad blood there. Blood brothers, bad blood. He executed some of Genghis Khan's followers and lost a lot of Mongol support, which just doesn't seem like a good idea anyway. In 1204, Jamukha tried again to defeat his old friend in battle and assume the Mongol universal throne. So that's like very Game of Thrones, isn't it? I want to be the ruler of Mongolia. And he was defeated. So he joined forces with On Khan, who was an ally and then opponent of Genghis Khan, which seems to be a running theme, doesn't it?
People
Genghis Khan.
befriend him and then
and
turn to enemies. Maybe the problem is Genghis Khan then, because if everywhere smells of shit, check your own shoe.
Yes. Yeah.
We've all got that friend who's always in constant drama.
Yeah, Genghis.
If I am that friend basically. Genghis Khan sounds like me, just always falling out with everyone. And murdering millions of people.
Yeah.
Standard Saturday
similarities. So Jamukha and On Khan joined together to defeat Genghis Khan. No, sorry, I messed that up.
You just
is
this alternate facts?
No, yes, because I put he joined forces with On Khan, so now I'm not actually sure if it was Genghis Khan that joined or Jamukha. That's a schoolboy error.
This video is actually genuine misinformation.
So someone joined forces.
The news.
So the point of the story is that Jamukha had been defeated by Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan. The followers of Jamukha. Sorry, this is getting confusing. There's way too many characters. 1 out of 10. This story. So Jamukha's followers betrayed Jamukha in order to hand them over to Genghis Khan to get a reward. Mm-hmm. But Genghis Khan did not appreciate betrayal.
The disloyalty.
Yes,
sure, yeah.
disloyalty. So he had all of those people executed, and he went to Jamukha with an offer that they can be friends again. Mm-hmm. Jamukha said, no, kill me. I don't know if we could say that. Unalive me.
You can say that. God.
So Jamukha basically asked for a noble death, which in the Mongolian system back then, a death without blood drawing or bloodletting is a noble death. So I guess like strangulation or poison. So actually the person that killed his father was actually doing it in quite a noble way. Anyway. The final recorded words were that there could only be one emperor at one time. So Jamukha wanted to be emperor really bad. He wouldn't settle for anything else except emperor or death. So Genghis Khan just granted him the noble death. I guess it was strangulation or something like that.
Why'd that sound like Highlander? There can only be one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit extreme, wasn't it? But I guess back then it was, you knew that if you didn't become ruler, it's probably not much of a good life for you. But I looked at the movie. I thought I'd make a really good movie or story, the betrayal and the friendship aspect. But there's only been 2 movies, I think, that cover that aspect. And in one of them, Jamukha was an enemy the whole time. So that doesn't... They basically took out one of the best bits about the story. So what a good movie or game that would be.
I feel like that is so consistent with Genghis's character and his mode of ethics that he killed the betrayers.
Yeah.
How dare you not have loyalty?
That's great,
to...
isn't it?
I really rate that. Is that wrong that I really rate that of him? Let's shelve the 40 million people that tragically passed away during the... Let's just like compartmentalize that. Put that in a little box.
Put it in a box.
Lock it. Throw away the key for a second. I really rate that he did that. I like to think that if I was a dictator, I'd pull some stuff like that.
Yes.
Like, oh, what, you want to sell out my mortal enemy? That's great. I'm not going to say stuff. Bloody YouTube. No, decent. It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things like that. He did actually show some like morals or some sort of logical thinking, but then he just killed a load of people.
Well,
so it's like join us. He had a very join us or die attitude, but if you were in his army, then it probably wasn't too bad.
He did have a moral, ethical, and logical code. Every single human has a code of logic that makes sense to them. Whether it makes sense objectively is a different matter entirely. But he clearly had some ethical code. It just wouldn't really... I'd say it wouldn't really wash in the 21st century, but what have we seen in the last 100 years? Pol Pot, Mao's great leap forward, Stalin, Mussolini?
Yeah.
Yep, Hitler. Who else? Saddam Hussein. Who else? All these geezers in the past 100 years.
Idi Amin.
I saw a documentary about that guy. Very interesting.
And horrible, yeah. All of these people. We're going to do episodes on all of them, I think, except one who's everyone knows about anyway.
Are you calling Hitler overrated?
No, I'm saying no one wants to hear about him, I don't think.
Well, yeah, because there'd be nothing new that we could add to that conversation.
No.
About Hitler. But I don't know that much about... Well, I know a little bit about Mao and his Chairman Mao. I know a little bit. I know a little bit about Pol Pot. Was it Admin Amin?
Idi Amin.
I watched a documentary on him and I thought, that is really interesting.
He's a butcher. Yeah.
Yes, so we will definitely have to... We're just going to go through all the great dictator... Yeah. Great is a very wrong word. You know what I mean? Like, as in Voldemort, like terrible but great. You know, that kind of...
Well, if you use great in the context or in the way that they used to use great, where it meant like large or effective or big, because
that's what I meant. I don't mean
Genghis Khan a great conqueror.
Yeah,
but it's not like he's a great guy. It's more like he conquered many places and did a lot of things. And his kind of bloodline was very successful at what they did. So his grandson Kublai Khan conquered China and established the Yuan dynasty.
The what? The Yuan?
Yuan.
I thought you were saying UN. Funny then.
No, the Yuan dynasty.
Really? Wow.
The NATO dynasty. So after the collapse of the Yuan, the Mongols retreated to Mongolia and resumed their earlier pattern of factional conflict. So that's when the sort of era of the Genghis Khan and his descendants kind of ended, because it was then all the factions fighting each other, which is the situation that Mongolia was in before Genghis Khan was born. There was also one of his sons, which I mentioned earlier, Ogude, carried on. So, and then some quick fire facts, which obviously... no, we didn't mention his death. We have to mention his death. So
no one knows.
Genghis Khan died. They don't know what he died of. It may have been a horse accident, which seems to happen quite a lot back then. Anyway.
Well, horses are dangerous, man. They're huge. Have you ever had a horse like stomp on you?
Well, yeah, exactly. And obviously Henry VIII
genuine
fell
question,
off his
it weren't
horse
rhetorical.
and that kind of changed his mindset. But Genghis Khan died, very sad. And then he was buried.
R.I.P. to a real one.
He was buried, but they buried him in an unknown location. There were 30,000 people in the burial party, and most of those people were executed to stop the location of the grave being let out. So including the people that were burying him, most of the people were killed, and the remaining people broke a dam or flooded the area of the grave to hide the grave. So it happened again, but to bury Genghis Khan, so no one knew where he was.
But why did they want no one to know?
Because he was this great ruler, quote unquote, and he was like a deity to them. They called him the Emperor of the Blue Sky, I think it was. And he was obviously, when he was born, he was predicted to become a deity. So it's obviously a lot more mythological back then, and people had a lot more crazy beliefs.
A lot more crazy beliefs. How dare you?
Oh yeah, they believed he was like a deity, and a blood clot meant he was going to be a great leader. Although, obviously, he was a great leader. So whether the blood clot thing was made up, afterwards. Who knows? And then Mongolia is a landlocked country in East Asia, bordered by Russia to the north and China to the south. It's 603,000 square miles. Now, the interesting part is it's got a population of 3.3 million, which makes it the world's most sparsely populated sovereign nation. It's also the world's largest landlocked country that does not border a closed sea. 8% of men from Asia are his descendants, which we didn't mention. That's obviously a well-known fact about Genghis Khan. A lot of the Mongol lineage is quite spread out within Asia because Genghis Khan would literally go to so many places and father an unknown number of daughters and obviously his sons. Genghis Khan was featured in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You can tell we're getting to the end now.
Why did you put that in there?
Because it's brilliant.
He was all right, and he was decent in that. Do you think?
Right,
he was all right.
Al Leon, who was in They Live, Big Trouble in Little China, and Die Hard.
They Live, great film. Totally recommend it. It's about the reptilians.
Yes.
Also, Slavoj Žižek, I should say. He loves the film They Live. He thinks it is a perfect ideology.
Yes.
That's it. Did we learn stuff today? I think people will unlearn things if they listen to this. I think we've subtracted IQ points from people's
I think we muddied the water of intelligence.
I think we have. I think we're going to have professors writing to us to beg us to stop and not do this again.
There's going to be a Genghis Khan expert out there somewhere that's just probably having a heart attack.
Typing away in the comment section right now as we speak.
You're going to get a comment that's like 5,000 words.
Yeah,
right. Actually,
anyone that starts a comment with actually, I'm going to ban the word actually from all my comment sections. Actually,
good idea.
That's it. All right, weren't it? Went too hard.
Anything to add? I feel like I did a lot of the talking, probably because I have the bigger screen.
Oh, it's just because I can't read. I can't read.
Oh yes.
Yeah, no, you did fine.
So it's probably quite controversial, but what a mad lad!
Oh my god, what?
What a mad lad! What an absolute overachiever. Not a great guy, but he achieved a lot.
Yeah, absolutely mad lad for sure. I thought you were going to turn around and be like, do you know what? He had a point.
No,
he was decent actually.
No, he just wanted land and a big nation, didn't he?
Yeah, one overachiever. He really did it. So that's all for this first episode of us trying to do history and things. This is worse than GCSE history. This is like essay.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, it's like SAT level. Like what you do in year 6. Wasn't that the SAT?
Nursery.
No, that's year 9.
Nursery
this
level.
Is like SAT level of education. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know if you want more of this. We've got a list of about 100 different famous people, and we're just going to undignify their legacy by talking about them. And that's all.
Thank you.
That's what you're going to say? You're going to say goodbye?
See you next time.
Yeah. See you guys next time. Bye.